Hi and welcome to my first ever knitting video. I'm Laura, also known as the Knitgineer on TikTok, Instagram, and I'm so happy to have you here. Go grab you a cup of hot coffee, hot tea. I'm currently using my mug that I got from my grandma. She bought it on a market and it's so cute. It has like a little knitting motif on it and then a yarn ball on the back. Have you ever wondered why your wool sweaters keep you warm even when it's wet and your cotton t-shirts does absolutely not keep you warm? Today we're diving into the science of fibers, what they are, how they're made, and how to choose the right one for your project. If you haven't met me yet, I'm Laura. I'm a chemical engineering student who's obsessed with knitting and yarn. I love creating a bridge between science and between hobbies and cozy things, such as knitting, yarn, and everything in that category. And I'm a bit of a nerd. Today we're breaking down the building block of every yarn, namely the fibers of the yarns. Fibers are the smallest units that make up yarn. You can think of them as tiny filaments with different forms. Some are smooth, some are rough, some are crimped, and some are hollow, and each one has a different property that they provide to the yarn. And these properties and the structure of the fibers determines everything from the warmth, breathability, the drape, everything that the yarn does for your knitwear. There are three big categories when talking about yarn fibers. They're the natural fibers, the manufactured regenerated fibers, and the synthetic made fibers. Natural fibers are animal fibers or plant fibers such as wool, alpaca, silk, cashmere, cotton, linen, hemp, everything like that. The animal fibers are protein-based, meaning they're made up of keratin and fibrin. These protein fibers has a natural crimp to them, meaning that the fibers are curly or wavy. This gives stretch to the fibers, elasticity, and bounce, which is why knitted sweaters with wool can stretch to fit your body, and then when you take them off, they bounce back together. Plant fibers are cellulose fibers. Cellulose fibers are straight and smooth, meaning that they're more resilient to wear, aka they're stronger, they're less elastic, and they're cooler fibers as well. Protein fibers like wool insulate. The crimp in the yarn traps air inside the yarn, which is why the wool is warm even if it's wet. Fun fact is that wool can actually hold up to 30% of its own weight in water without feeling damp, which is why wool is such a great fiber to use for outdoor clothes as well. Cellulose fibers like cotton absorb moisture, but they don't insulate. This makes them perfect for warm climates, which is why you usually see cotton blends used for summer clothes or shawls or everything like that. The second category of fibers are manufactured regenerated fibers. This is fibers like viscose, rayon, modal, lyocell, aka tencel, and bamboo. These fibers are made from natural cellulose fibers as well, but they're chemically processed. These fibers usually have a very soft, silky feel and an amazing drape when using them to create clothes. Lyocell is one of the most eco-friendly type of fibers in this category, thanks to its closed-loop solvent system. The last category of fibers is synthetic fibers. These are fibers like acrylics, polyester, nylon, everything like that. These fibers are fully man-made fibers, and they're usually petroleum-derived. This also means that these are the least eco-friendly forms of yarn that you can use. Since they're man-made, they're made with specific properties to make the yarns attractable for attractive for people to choose. These fibers are usually very strong, lightweight, and very durable. They're also less breathable due to the high density of the fibers. Acrylics are usually used to mimic wool's texture. Nylon is usually used to add strength to the garment, so you can find a lot of alpaca blends with nylon in it. It's also why nylon is used in a combination with wool for socks, as you're wearing the socks on your feet and exposing them to a lot more wear. Nylon also helps add strength, which is also why they're very good in sock yarns. And lastly, polyester adds durability to the yarns as well. However, wool is the only fiber that can hold water to that degree and still keep you warm, as well as being as insulating as it is. No man-made fiber can do exactly the same as that. Now I think we should talk about some fiber properties that actually matters. When choosing fibers for knitting, think in terms of performance and what you want the yarn to actually do. If you want the piece to be very warm, choose fibers like wool, alpaca, everything like that, animal fiber. If you like a nice drape, so for dresses or summer shirts, choose silk, viscose, lyocell, or any other plant-made fiber. If you want this stuff to be breathable and cool, so for warmer climates, I would highly recommend choosing stuff like bamboo, cotton, linen, and even silk as well. For elasticity, you can choose wool or any of the synthetic fibers such as polyester or nylon. If you want very durable garments or pieces, so for example, for interior wear, choose yarns such as linen, hemp, or nylon, as they are very strong, durable. If you want a yarn for moisture management, you can look at two different categories. So if you want them to absorb the moisture and keep you cool, you can choose something like cotton or modal. If you want them to keep you warm, you can choose something like wool. So now I think we should talk about different fibers for different garments. For sweaters, I would highly recommend using wool fibers as they're very elastic and they keep you warm and they're great at temperature control. You can also use acrylic blends for this, as they're the man-made yarn fiber that mimics that of wool. However, keep in mind that using acrylic yarn is not as eco-friendly as using wool. For summer tops and breathable pieces, I would highly recommend to use something like cotton, lyocell, linen, bamboo, as they're cool to the touch, breathable, and non-elastic. So you can make flowy drapey pieces of this. For socks, you can probably guess what I'm going to say, but you should use a wool and nylon blend, because nylon adds a high amount of strength to the wool, whereas wool keeps your feet warm, regulates moisture, and they have antimicrobial activity as well, which means that it cancels out odor. For baby items, I would highly recommend using superwash wool or other wool with nylon added into it. We can go into more detail about superwash wool in another video if you guys are interested in it, but it's a soft, non-irritating, and easy to wash type of wool, which is very nice for baby clothes. For hats and gloves, I would use wool or alpaca blends or wool and nylon blends as well, depending on what you're going to use them for. So now you're probably thinking, oh no, but how am I going to choose the right fiber? There's so many different types of fibers. And I get you, I really do. It can be super hard, so therefore I've made a list of how you can choose the right fiber for your garment. You have to ask yourself these 3 questions. Where will this garment be worn? If the answer is hot climates, choose linen or cotton or hemp, or any of the other manufactured regenerated fibers or plant fibers. If the answer is cold climates, I would choose wool or other animal fibers. The second question to ask yourself is how do you want it to drape? If you want it to be structured for collar work, for example, I would choose wool, as it gives a nice structure and stitch definition. If you want it to be more flowy and hold its own weight and not be elastic, choose something like silk or plant fibers like cotton. And lastly, how much will you wear this piece? If you're going to wear it every day, you might have to choose something that is more resilient to wear, such as having a blend of wool and nylon or any of the other acrylics. If you're only going to wear it as luxe items or take extra care of your garments, you can choose something like alpaca or silk or cashmere or any of the other without adding the nylon or acrylics. So that's your crash course in how to choose the right fibers and what fibers actually are. In the next videos, we'll deep dive into plant fibers, animal fibers, regenerated manufactured fibers, and synthetic fibers, and talk about each of these different fibers in detail. If you found this video helpful, I would love if you could subscribe and come back to my next videos. You can leave a comment down below which fibers you want to see next, and give this a thumbs up if you enjoyed it.